Hi, I'm Dave Cederer, and wanted to welcome you to my presentation today. I'm the SHI Variance Authority, protecting the timeline with the Jamf API for Apple devices, and I'm here to get into probably a very nerdy topic. But first things first, we do want to make sure that the timeline that we're in right now is a stable one, and I'm told that it looks like things are good, so that should be all right. We shouldn't have anything weird. Okay, pause. Well, let's see where this goes. Next up, let's just take a look at something that I know. No, I didn't do that presentation, and I definitely said I wasn't going to do that one. Okay, this one I know. This is me, and I am certain. I'm Dave Cederer. I am the Apple Solutions Architect with SHI. I'm on Mac admins at DS, and unfortunately not as frequent as I'd like to be, but hopefully changing that habit. We're going to do our best to post this source code at GitHub SHI along with my own personal website, scripteditor.app. Feel free to reach out. I am honestly a lifelong nerd of this sort of thing, and if I'd gotten sick of talking about it, I don't think I've ever found that time. So to go on, ICX. Back to the past, and this is actually back in 2019, and it's a problem that's a pretty common one that in what we sort of do, which is the chicken or the egg, or in this case, I tried to sort of condense this down to as simple a phrase as I could. Information that we have that devices need either now or sooner than now, and basically, let's go over. We're going to go over what we made to solve this and kind of what that problem looks like and what the solution is. And what that is what I call ICX, which stands for Integration Center Exchange today. But right now I can explain. Actually, when I was beginning building this presentation, it didn't really stand for anything. It was a few letters that looked cool together. So it actually got itself a new expanded acronym as part of JNUC. So I'm always happy to see those consequences. Simply put, ICX works by addressing the Jamf pre-stage and inventory preload, and we're working with basically barcode scanners to make devices aware of who they are and what they are before they even wake up, and a little bit more dynamically than we're really able to in a lot of other ways. I know this does not sound like the most exciting thing in the world, but the reason that I really want to talk about this is that it makes a big impact. To just go in kind of procedurally, what this is, we're scanning in something, a serial number along with an asset tag, any other personal information that's specific to this device. And we're doing this in our configuration center. When that scan happens, it'll upload to the API. We'll have a confirmation that upload occurred, and basically it'll be kind of poised to onboard that device as soon as it wakes up, so that all our technicians in our warehouse have to do is turn it on, step through Setup Assistant, and make sure that all the apps that need to be there are. If there was something like authentication, being able to switch to a separate pre-stage can be really advantageous when you're doing kind of either a unique device setup, especially when you can dynamically. Now, one thing I just want to make really clear, that Jamf setup, if some of this sounds kind of familiar, Jamf setup for changing device contexts, use that if you can. It is a great app, and you can do some really, really cool things with it, and it's just going to get cooler as iOS grows. That being said, what we basically looked at for ICX, this is kind of just an outline of the procedure. Serial number gets scanned along with any other attributes. We do have usually a confirmation step. Certain builds we don't do that for if it's a very rapid fire sort of thing. Pre-stage modification and check of the device type. We'll get back to why that's important later in this step. Sending up an inventory preload of information about this device, and a confirmation piece along with some error reporting. Now, keep in mind, every project does have challenges, and this one definitely was no exception. There were multiple systems involved in some cases, so we did actually work on some API calls outside of the Jamf sphere to address these. We're actually going to look at one of those a little bit later on. And because of the unique sort of, our technicians in our warehouse need real-time one-to-one access to these devices, it really is kind of, you need to be able to sort of point to a device and say, I need this to do that right then. And there's a lot of diversity in device type. A lot of our customers don't just order iPads, they'll order phones, they'll order Macs, and all of these usually are involved in the builds that we're doing. And to be honest, some of our technicians do have varying skill levels. So we do want to make sure that this is something that's fairly simple for them, because there's a huge amount of devices on their way. So speed makes a big difference. So keep in mind, this whole procedure that we kind of set up for this, it did have to work once, and then it had to work a whole lot more. That this is something that's been running over and over again through thousands of devices, which really brings us kind of to where we're kind of looking at the present. And hopefully this will be a speed bump free transition to the present. And oh, that was weird. All right. So fast forward to the present, as I mentioned, thousands of devices that this has been used on that have come through our warehouse, and the entirety of this is built in Apple Script and Shell. These are the languages that I'm personally most comfortable with, and I've been able to do a lot of really great things, especially around Apple Script for app distribution, being able to compile a script into an app, sign that, and distribute that through the MDM, through Jamf to the devices. Just makes it a whole lot easier when a revision has to go out. So to start with, we said good to start at the beginning. And the first thing you have to do if you're talking to any API, especially Jamf, is authentication. The way that the Jamf API works is that it's you first pass it that the credentials, the name and password, and you do get an authorization token that you can use after that basically throughout the course of your script, as long as it's fairly short in time frame. And there's no penalty for kind of recalling for another one of these. But this is basically giving you the token to do the power to do everything else. So we're going to see this come into play a decent bit later on, but it's kind of our key to everything else that we're doing. It's really all come down to streamlining the important things. And sometimes the important things don't seem like the important things, but small things really, really do add up. We're going to take a look at just the prompt for the scanning right here. So we did some validation here because we wanted to make sure that if somebody does sort of grab a barcode that's very, very wrong, that it redirects them to rescan right away, and takes care of a lot of the common things that can happen on the way in. So this scan prompt, it's going to make sure that it's between 10 and 15 characters that this serial number is coming in with. And also it's getting rid of that leading S. We'll come back to that in a second. This is what the technician sees, though. It's just a window, and all they have to do is basically just pull the trigger on the scanner gun, and that device identifier goes in. So when that gets scanned in our warehouse, even though there's that leading S, and I'm showing my age, I'm a fairly old Apple retail alum, and they used to program some of the scanners to get rid of the S, but it's not something that can be done in every circumstance. So it was right to do that in code. So this makes sure that anything that's going up actually does not have that superfluous S and is going to match up with whatever's incoming when it comes to that device. Clean input, because scanning can be a pain in the ass. I'm sorry. Let's take a look at an API from the other side. Some would say the darker side, but the Microsoft Graph is a place that can house a lot of really great information, and the way that Jamf can integrate with that has just sort of opened up a lot of possibilities, especially to some of the auditing that our customers are doing. So what I wanted to show here is this is very similar to the subroutine that I'd showed earlier on how to authenticate with the Jamf API. The difference is, obviously, this looks a whole lot bigger and more complicated. The top part of this is just for URL encoding to sort of change spaces to %20, that sort of thing. as a part of what Microsoft accepts of their kind of bearer token, what that is. So once that's set up, the basically there's just a bit of assembly for a payload that goes up, and at the end of the day, you get the same piece of information that you get from the Jamf API. You get that bearer token that allows you to do other things with that API. So even though, again, this looks more complicated, at the end of the day, you're basically just getting this sort of chunk of text, and it gives you that same freedom to do whatever you're allowed to under that account next up. And here's just a look at the device record subroutine that we were using to kind of pull that specific device. So we're actually grabbing that bearer token just at the top there for our session that's calling that subroutine we just used, and is searching by serial number for that device to make sure that we get the correct device ID. Microsoft Graph is very specific about using device ID, and that can represent different one serial number can represent more than one device ID, so it can get a little bit confusing, to say the least. But the nice thing is being able to say, okay, this device is compliant before it's leaving, or that this piece of, we basically know that this is communicating with Azure. It's good peace of mind. It's definitely been something that that our customers have liked taking advantage of. And going on a little bit, we'll look at flipping out, not literally, but what I call a subroutine called flip type. Flip type. This is a fairly simple on the surface, because it is, as with all code at the end of the day. What happens is this subroutine is, if the current device type, whether it's mobile device or computer, is one, then change it to the other and make sure that the pre-stage ID changes too. And that's basically called into play here, where if there's if there's an error that comes through, either invalid device type or I found lately device does not exist on token sometimes comes up, the script is smart enough to say, okay, I understand these are errors, but they might be indicative that I'm just trying to send an iPad serial number to the Mac pre-stage, and Jamf won't have any of that. So trying that flip type and being able to say, okay, well, we're just going to see if this is a Mac. Then let's try it as a Mac, and it goes through. If it doesn't go through, we still get the same error, and basically the only thing that's really being sacrificed here is the kind of waste of time of an error that a technician doesn't necessarily need to see, just because these are very soft sort of requests that go through. And because of that, it just means that just one click gives you that flip without even having to think about it. And keep in mind, we do also do a decent bit of QA featuring the human eye. There is a confirmation dialog, as I'd kind of alluded to earlier. We're looking at any of the pertinent information that's going up, and our technicians can take a quick look and see, okay, this serial number is either obviously one or not. It's every single error correction routine or that you can make. If there's a quick way for somebody to catch it with an eye and it doesn't waste a lot of time, it's usually a good way to go about it. But as long as this confirmation button is pushed, that's going to start the entirety of the process, all that communication with the API. We also have this secondary button here for BOH. This example happened to have a back of house device as sort of a secondary role. So we actually have that as part of that inventory preload that's going up. And that's made of this. This is a bit of the JSON that's going up. It's a serial number, device type. As we mentioned, that device type was gathered to be correct earlier because of that flip type. Full name, which is actually we're just storing a custom device name in there as part of a template in this script. We've got that department name, which we're using for that device role, asset tag, and the building is getting the location code that's part of this too. And that is all sent as a data payload right up to the Jamf API. And as long as everything goes well, as soon as that device is turned on and hits the internet, not only is it going to get everything that it needs from Apple Business Manager, it's also going to get the right things from Jamf in a very custom fashion and pretty up to the minute. Of course, not everything goes correctly. So there were many errors in building this, and there will be many more. So one thing that I'd done is take a look at a few of the common errors and be able to say, okay, this let's give this a little bit more of a plain language rather than duplicate underscore field. We can say that there's an inventory preload record there already. Part of the script also will overwrite that record if it's already there. But it's a whole lot easier for a technician to say, okay, this is definitely what's occurred, rather than, okay, -47 doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. At the end of the day, though, -47s happen, and it's usually useful for folks like me to see what the heck the entirety of that is. So wanted to look at what happens when we haven't seen an error before, and copy the entirety of that payload that's going up to the or rather coming back from the API to the clipboard, so they can email me that easily, or even text if I'm really on the go. And honestly, it's all about enabling just that front line of workers that are doing this mass amount of device configuration. Everyone really benefits from that effective troubleshooting and being able to understand what they can understand and understand where the unknown starts. Speaking of unknown, I think we'll take things into a little bit of a future direction here. And well, that's a little bit odd, but hopefully that doesn't get us in any trouble. Ooh. We're not going to worry about that. Looking at the future of ICX Mobile was kind of the big thing that I had an idea for. I wanted to build something for iOS and iPadOS because kind of one barcode scanner and a Mac can only go around to so many devices. I want to build that for complex workflows too. Make this something where you can switch customers or entire workflows with the ease of something like a drop down, and just have that sort of very clear interface. I'll admit I tried this in shortcuts and I didn't get as far as I liked. I got pretty far to the point that I realized there was a whole lot more I wanted to do. So that's really where ICX Mobile has conceptually turned into a native iOS, iPadOS, and actually by proxy macOS app, which can take advantage of live text. We want it to take advantage of vision frameworks as well to get that barcode scanning. App config support too for those payloads. So we could actually store that server information, keeping either an authentication redirect or even just some light central management for that, and specific API calls, so we can have predefined sort of drop downs and complete custom calls, able to order those in a certain order and give kind of delays as to when they're fired off too, and feature flags that our technicians have been asking for, things like being able to check the status of a device without having to modify its record, for example. It's a lot easier to sort of add something like that to an app. So we're not there yet. I realize I'm speaking in both present and future tense, and I'll blame it on the last few slides and possibly who's out to get me. But here is, at the very least, sort of my vision of what something like that could look like, and really being able to use those frameworks and be very clear about sort of switching from logo to logo, so our technicians never get confused about whose device is going where. Luckily, with pre-stages, it's something that wouldn't really cause a problem, but it is, yeah, it's just something that could lengthen a day, so to speak. With that, I wanted to really thank you for all time. This is coming from myself and my team, especially since I found 2 or 3 bugs as a result of creating this presentation. So 2.4.1 became 2.4.2 as I was writing this. But it's been a wonderful JNUC so far, and I hope that that you enjoy the rest of it, because I definitely know I will, and hopefully without too much extra dimensional interference. So this would, all right, and that's my final. That's all I have for today. Thank you very much.